What's up, you guys? Thank you for clicking on this video. So as you can tell by the title, we have some interesting pieces of info to discuss in today's video. So sit on back, grab a snack, and listen to me ramble. So these come from some Instagram DMs, some questions that have been answered via Evan on Instagram from a couple people within the Transformers fandom. So this first question is from JaAm KDHM. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that name wrong, if you happen to watch this video. But he asked, "Hi Evan, love your work on the brand. Do you think there's a chance of us getting more Micromasters at some point?" And Evan answered, "Perhaps at some point in the future. We just need to figure out the best way to go about them that works." Okay, I'm really open to Micromasters. They're kind of a cool, sort of underappreciated side of Transformers lore that I actually think we gotta delve into more in the modern era. We did have Micromasters during that little pocket in Siege and Earthrise, but they were canceled because they stopped selling well, and there was that whole thing going on around 2020. So then they got replaced with Core Class and everything. But there is a lot of stuff that they could tap into Micromasters, especially with characters that I'm pretty sure haven't gotten figures yet even. And, play features that they kind of woven into Siege and Earthrise, but, they didn't really like delve into it too much. It was kind of like a side gimmick, sort of. But I really think they should delve into making them a bit more complex, adding a bit more articulation and just a tad bit more to their transformations, making them on the level of a core class figure per se. I think that would actually be really cool, and it would probably help people have more interest in picking up these Micromaster figures because, as they are, the way they've been doing them the last 6 or so years off and on since Siege, they're really simplistic and kind of just second edition, like not really anything too substantial in terms of an actual figure. So I think making them more in terms of like core class engineering, or what they've done with the couple new mini-cons from Unicron Trilogy that we've gotten over the last couple years, making them a bit more in line like that, I think would really help. So hopefully they do Micromasters in that fashion here at some point soon. And this next Instagram question comes from ARLT4. He asked, "Hello Evan, I have one question to ask you about 86 Megatron. Has been the turret mode considered instead of tank when designing his alt mode? I think if turret was his alt mode, it would have to become a nice replacement of his original Walter P-38 blaster mode." And Evan responded with, "It wasn't a consideration per se, since a turret is still very close to a blaster. I think we'd have to change his colors to brighter toy colors to make a turret happen." That's kind of crazy. Like, this is actually kind of big news here. Every answer is big news with these questions on Instagram, but this is like something that's, I don't know, in terms of like actually getting close to like a gun mode Megatron within the Generations line nowadays. This makes it seem like it's kind of impossible at this point. If you remember, we did get the Classics Voyager class Megatron, who was a Nerf gun, who was like gray, black, purple, and neon green. And then a few years later, I think it was the Reveal the Shield Legends class line, we got a gun mode Megatron, but I believe he had like an orange tip to the pistol mode. And then ever since then, it's been basically silence for a new Megatron that turns into a gun. And it seems like the designers can't even do one that turns into like a Cybertronian turret, which would be like the example this person gave here in the DMs. That's kind of crazy. Like, you would even have to make a sci-fi Cybertronian gun turret thing, bright kitty colors to make sure it goes along with gun regulations and laws here in the States. That's interesting. I did not think it went that deep in terms of the laws nowadays to make a Megatron that resembles some sort of a weapon mode that's not a tank. That's really crazy. I didn't know it was that extreme in terms of how strict it is nowadays. I would actually be open to a brighter colored Megatron. They did it in the 2000s, they did it in the 90s. Me personally, I'm kind of getting sick of the gray and black and red color scheme. I wouldn't mind if they made a Megatron purple and green again. Like make a Cybertronian turret mode Megatron, a brand new design in Generations, and just make him green with hits of purple. Why not? That would actually be pretty cool. It would be something a bit different while still recognizing core mythos and lore that we've seen with Megatron in the past, because he's already been green and purple a multitude of times in Transformers media. And, making him a turret is obviously in reference to him being the gun mode in G1, so why not just do something like that? Bring some new ideas to the table for Generations that you don't really see too often nowadays. I think that would be great. So hopefully Evan or Mark or whoever is in charge of designing a Megatron like that at some point down the line, they would actually do this idea of a Cybertronian turret mode with like brighter colors, like a purple and neon green combo. That would be pretty sick. And this last little question and answer I want to go over here in the video is again from ARLT4. He asked 5 questions here. So the first one, let's cover, can we get War for Cybertron DS characters like Ultra Magnus and CYCLONUS? And Evan answered with, I think eventually we'll have to do them. Oh man, that would be pretty badass, guys. I'm not gonna lie. Ultra Magnus and CYCLONUS, those are some cool characters. I would really love to see them done as like Voyager class or maybe even Leader class. I would probably more than likely pick those characters up. Like, depending on how good they are. If it's along the lines of like Gamer Edition Barricade and Bumblebee, I would have to think twice or maybe wait for a sale. But if it's along the lines of like Optimus or Sideswipe or Starscream, man, I would pick up those 2 characters in a heartbeat if they were made. And then the second question here is, if Gamer Edition Combaticons are made, will you make Ruination with redeco and partial retool? And Evan answered with, that's always on the table, even if that didn't show up in the games. So that would be kind of crazy to see. It's obviously not something that too many people would be asking for. That would kind of be like a random exclusives or Gen Selects repaint if they really want to make their money back on the molds for those. I could see them doing something like that for like some wacky release as an exclusive or something. Maybe like a Halloween exclusive because, the Ruination colors kind of go in line with the Halloween season or something, or maybe even Thanksgiving. I don't know. Just to kind of make an excuse to get a repaint off of the Gamer Edition Combaticon molds. But I could see them doing that maybe, but I definitely wouldn't count on it. It doesn't really seem like something that would be high on the list for them to do. And then the third question here is, if Gamer Edition Fall Cybertron Jazz comes out, his iconic grappling hook, would it be included? And Evan responded with, I think we'd certainly try. That doesn't really spark too much confidence for me for a future Fall Cybertron Jazz release. It would be nice to get his gun and grappling hook to go along with it. Maybe one that has a couple hinges on the hook section. That would be really sick to see, especially on a deluxe class figure, really add some playability to that figure. But honestly, with how budgets are going nowadays and how accessories are with Transformers and how kind of scarce they are with deluxes most of the time, I wouldn't count on it. He would probably just come with one of those game guns and they would call it a day for accessories, unfortunately. But I'd love to be wrong. I would love to be happily surprised by them including both his gun and grappling hook, or hell, maybe even just the grappling hook with some ball joints or hinges to the actual rope section to make it articulated or something. That would be pretty cool to see, but I don't know, it probably won't be something we see when they inevitably do a Gamer Edition Jazz. Question number 4 is there some possibility about a redo of Gamer Edition B / Cliffjumper mold? And Evan responded with, probably not for a while, but we'll have to wait and see. I think that Bumblebee mold needs an update, I think it's very high on the list for Studio Series updates. Like, so many people want that, and it's something that I really think desperately needs to be redone to just learn from the mistakes of that first figure a couple years ago. kind of mesh some of the ideas and engineering and stuff that was learned with the original Deluxe in 2010, and kind of mold the two figures together into something that just looks a bit better, something that's more accurate to the game design. Because there was a lot of stuff that worked with that new figure a couple years ago. I think the arms were a bit better than the original 2010 Deluxe. The head sculpt was a bit better. The overall transformation, I'd say, was a bit better as well. But everything else, that stomach, the midsection, the legs, absolutely awful. Way worse than that original 2010 Deluxe figure. So hopefully there's a way they could mash the two in terms of engineering to create, not the perfect figure, because, mainline stuff is never really perfect, but getting one that's way better than the one that came out in 2023 and the one in 2010. So hopefully they make one sooner rather than later. And the final question is, Gamer Edition, Breakaway, and Warpath, both War for Cybertron and TF3 game, are still on the table, and Evan answered with one word. He said absolutely, exclamation mark. So that is a really positive answer. There was a rumor list for Studio Series, I believe, that came out back in 2021, early that year, when we first got the leak that Gamer Edition and Gamer exclusive characters would be making its way into Studio Series down the line. There was a list, if I remember correctly, guys. Let me know in the comments. There was a list that included Breakaway and Warpath from the Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon game. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's hinting at us getting those two releases that were rumored a few years ago. I don't know where those rumors went or what happened with it. Let me know in the comments, guys, if there were any updates on that or what happened to the credibility of that and why leakers don't talk about that rumor list anymore. I think it was from, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth because I could be wrong on this. I'm going off of memory from 4 years ago, but I think it was like a Rekgar list, Rekgar39 or whatever his username is on TFW. He put up a leak list a few years ago. So I definitely do think we're going to get these two characters from their movie game designs at some point soon, probably 2028 or 2027 at the earliest. We don't know if Gamer Edition is taking a break in 2027 or not, but we're going to have to wait and see. I would really love to see those characters get made. But yeah, guys, those are all the Instagram DM question and answers that I wanted to cover in this video. Stay tuned for more videos covering these Q&As. And yeah, guys, thank you for watching this video. Catch y'all in the next one. Bye!